Demons in Doom are no longer the most dangerous thing in the building. That honor now belongs to a quarterly target. First, one of Xbox's own veteran developers is publicly questioning management after major cuts. Second, the argument is not merely that people lost jobs, but that id Software may have lost specialist knowledge that takes years to rebuild. Third, Microsoft says the studio still has the people and technology it needs, while Chris Hayes says the old structure has been damaged in ways a headcount cannot explain. Somewhere inside Xbox, a PowerPoint deck is insisting those statements are perfectly compatible. Unfortunately, compatible does not mean reassuring. Today, the real question is simple. Microsoft owns Doom, id Software and id Tech, but does it still understand what made them valuable? Historically, id is not some disposable support team, assembled last Tuesday, to make Doom Farm for mobile phones. Specifically, this is the studio behind Doom, Quake, major first-person shooter innovations and decades of engine work. Afterward, came Microsoft ownership, promises of resources, stability, and a larger ecosystem around legendary studios. Then came the restructuring. Texas Warn Information showed 96 jobs cut in Richardson, plus 40 remote positions reporting there, although that location also includes workers connected to other Bethesda groups. Consequently, do not treat all 136 positions as confirmed id developers. Crucially, the confirmed story is still serious. Experienced people were removed, specialist functions were hit, and a 16-year id veteran is openly questioning what the studio can build next. Immediately, this stops being another boring layoff headline. Instead, it becomes a question about whether Xbox management understands the machine it bought. Most importantly, if prestige, technical history, and a franchise like Doom cannot protect a studio from this kind of disruption, what Xbox team is actually safe? Beyond it itself, that question should bother anyone watching Microsoft's studio strategy, because every acquisition promise sounds wonderful, until the people carrying the knowledge become another restructuring expense. Before we get into which parts of that machine were removed, do the usual humiliating ritual, like the video, subscribe and support the channel if you want more breakdowns like this. Yes, I know, begging an algorithm for visibility is one of civilization's finer achievements. Treat it as our charitable contribution to keeping YouTube's recommendation system emotionally stable. Right, dignity restored, because the interesting part is not how many people disappeared. What matters is which jobs disappeared with them. Now, Hayes' complaint is not simply that layoffs are unpleasant, because everybody understands losing your job is miserable. According to his comments, the deeper problem is that Xbox treated headcount as though every employee were an interchangeable unit on a spreadsheet. Imagine removing the only electrician and announcing that the plumbing department remains fully staffed, so everything should be fine. Suddenly, the difference between "we still have developers" and "we still have the exact developers needed for this production pipeline" becomes extremely important. Worse, Hayes specifically questioned who would handle things such as skyboxes, infrastructure, and engine work after specialists in those areas were cut. Officially, id says the studio still has the crew required to make the games and technology it is known for. Meanwhile, director Hugo Martin pushed back against reports that id had been gutted to around 50 people, and said id Tech remains alive and well. Strip away the drama for a moment, and the contradiction becomes useful. Corporate reassurance is talking about total capacity. Conversely, Hayes is talking about which capacity was lost. Those are not the same thing. Pre-layoff id, by Hayes' account, had unusual stability, with many people working across several modern Doom projects. Fire a veteran who knows why an old tool breaks under one specific condition, and that knowledge does not stay behind, because human resources remember to deactivate the badge. Experienced teams carry shortcuts, warnings, old mistakes, and solutions that never appear in a PowerPoint deck. Excel sees a senior developer with an expensive salary. Players see the person who knows why the engine detonates. When somebody touches the cursed system, nobody documented properly. Therefore, Microsoft can be correct that id still exists, while Hayes can also be correct that the studio is weaker in ways an employee count does not show. More importantly, this is where the story stops being about layoffs and starts becoming a much bigger Xbox problem. Here is the uncomfortable question: what does success actually mean inside this business? Broadly, Hayes has questioned how first-party games are judged when Game Pass deliberately reduces the need for traditional purchases. If millions of subscribers get access without buying separately, pointing at lower sales and acting surprised becomes impressive corporate theater. Developers need to know which scoreboard management actually cares about. Either the target is revenue, subscriptions, engagement, player growth, margin, or some clearly explained combination of them. Otherwise, a studio can follow the strategy it was given, and later discover that the strategy has changed. That is how teams end up chasing a bullseye, while management quietly moves the dartboard between meetings. Microsoft cannot spend years teaching customers that first-party games arrive inside a subscription, and then act as though every missing full-price purchase is automatically evidence that the studio failed. Whatever metric matters internally, developers need to know what winning looks like. Contractors are the next obvious corporate magic spell. Nevertheless, temporary labor does not instantly recreate a team that spent years learning proprietary technology together. You can hire 100 talented people tomorrow and still not possess the same studio tomorrow afternoon. No reporting has established that these layoffs happened because Doom, the Dark Ages, failed. Oddly, that makes the situation more uncomfortable rather than less. Picture the human side for a second. Someone spends years shipping a difficult game, solves unseen problems, watches colleagues disappear, and then hears management say, the organization is positioned for the future. Employees are then expected back Monday with fewer familiar faces, more uncertainty, and the same enthusiasm. Congratulations on shipping the game. Your launch bonus is a new org chart. Obviously, none of this proves Doom is dead. It does prove that shipping a major franchise does not automatically protect the people who made it. Timing made the whole thing look even worse, because id was still supporting the Dark Ages around the restructuring. Reddit discussions in the Doom community quickly turned toward concern over lost experience and distrust of Xbox management. Forum reactions are not evidence of Microsoft's internal plans, and an avatar of the Slayer does not magically turn somebody into a forensic accountant. Still, those reactions measure confidence. Fans heard management say the studio has enough people. Later, they heard a veteran employee describe lost disciplines and uncertainty around future production. Precisely there is where distrust grows. Remember, nobody forced Microsoft to buy these studios. Xbox wanted the intellectual property, technology, catalog depth, prestige, and control that came with them. Control also comes with responsibility. Because management chooses the strategy, measures the results, restructures the teams, and removes the specialists, management owns the consequences as well. Nobody gets to buy the house, remove part of the foundation, and then act offended when people ask whether the walls still line up. Rarely does the acquisition presentation include that slide. Potentially the remaining ed team can regroup, hire, outsource intelligently, and make another excellent Doom. Maybe the next project launches, runs beautifully, reviews brilliantly, and makes every cynical bastard on YouTube look ridiculous. Good. I would happily take that outcome. However, Microsoft must prove the studio can still deliver at the standard players associate with ed, after removing people who helped create it. Previously, that burden did not exist. Leadership created it. Ultimately, the real test will not be Microsoft's next reassuring statement interview or polished corporate memo. Reality arrives with whatever major project id builds next, because that is where staffing, technical knowledge, production capacity, and management decisions collide. Finally, this is where the story becomes bigger than one round of layoffs. A studio is not merely a logo, a payroll number, a building, or a set of intellectual property rights. Creative capability lives inside people who know the tools, pipeline, old mistakes, and how to solve problems together. Buying a developer does not automatically mean understanding how that developer works. Owning an engine does not guarantee preserving the people who know how to evolve it. Cutting layers can be sensible when an organization is genuinely bloated. Removing specialist knowledge and assuming the remaining team will simply stretch into the empty space is something else entirely. Arguably, that is the difference between managing costs and managing capability. One improves a spreadsheet immediately. Capability decides whether the next game actually works. Ask yourself a very basic question. Would everything you have heard here make you more confident about the next 10 years of ed software? Personally, my preferred corporate strategy would be something revolutionary, like keeping enough experienced people around to know how the thing works. Beneath all the jokes, that is the danger. Teams are not collections of replaceable job titles. Missing experience eventually appears as delays, outsourcing problems, technical debt, slower iteration, safer design, or months spent rediscovering old decisions. Predictably, everyone then acts surprised. Presently, Microsoft owns an extraordinary collection of gaming properties, studios, technology, and famous brands. Compare that treasure pile with employees asking who will maintain infrastructure, handle specialist tasks, and organize future large projects responsibly. Nobody outside the company can claim another doom is impossible. Anybody paying attention can still ask whether repeatedly removing experienced people makes another great doom easier or harder. Fundamentally, the strongest criticism is not Microsoft killed doom. Accurately, Microsoft created enough uncertainty that one of its long-serving developers is publicly questioning whether the people above him understand the work they manage. Should the remaining studio prove him wrong, excellent, or the next project to struggle because specialist knowledge and team cohesion were lost, the company would have nobody else to blame. So, here is the final question Xbox has to answer. Can this version of id Software still build at the scale and technical ambition players expect without rebuilding the organization Microsoft just changed? Hell apparently was easier to organize. Elsewhere, a demon is staring at Microsoft's org chart and thinking the workplace culture looks hostile. Eventually the Slayer defeated monsters, gods, dimensions and ancient evil, only to discover the true final boss was middle management. Naturally, that boss does not even drop good loot. Anyway, I'm done with the corporate necromancy for today. Go play something made by people who still have building access.